public a bit up.
Okay, let me.
Do you understand what I mean? The comments are going to be reading, so.
The media will work right until the CHS is
But they'll move it. That's what I'm saying, because they're going to be reading. Yeah. So it has to be like here.
No.
Yeah, they can project. So it's LNG, ETC. Are you in ETC as well?
STC.
How many is it deployees?
That's the
These are the
Yeah, no, of course.
We are most at members in Kustin.
with the equal membership. And the problem is that you said.
That's what I'm saying.
Why too many committees?
What I said. What can we do with this bond? We cannot respond. And the more we respond, it becomes complicated.
Yes.
Because I'm trying to weave something together, but I need to manage letters, but I'm trying to.
And that's why I'm getting confused. LNG and intervention, so I don't know why. I started saying I'm with them, and I remember.
When Baba.
Our problems are made.
Oh, then they take out.
Then I was.
Did the water arrive?
Yes.
Okay.
What jump is how good the water arrived, but it was not there. No, she explained to me how we ended up here. There was nothing much of it. So now she's like,
Yes. Also, just for branding, couldn't Susan your Aquale and your
Okay, mina ngibeke the
and your Seattle.
Yeah, no, I'll put it there.
Oh, for
Otherwise, it's advertise.
Negative advertiser might touch your tail.
We're good?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm counting down to 12. Is it 12? Okay. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen of the media and everyone who's joining us here this morning, rather this afternoon. Thank you so much for joining our second briefing, which is part of the Manifesto review processes. You would have noticed that we started these briefings on Wednesday, where we started to give an account of the work of the ANC with regards to our implementation of our 2021 Manifesto, which is coming, obviously, to an end with this term of office, with the local government elections coming up in November. Today's briefing is our second briefing, of which we are joined here today by our members of the National Executive Committee, who also serve in various portfolios in government, and they will be giving us an update on the interventions in terms of the ANC's implementation of its manifesto over the last 5 years, which is a period under review. We are joined by Comrade Thembi Simelane, who is a member of the NEC, as well as the Minister of Human Settlements. She will start by giving an account of her area of deployment, which is human settlements. We will then go to Comrade Mahlobo, who is an NEC member as well, and the Deputy Minister of Water and Sanitation, who will then give an account of the period under review insofar as water and sanitation is concerned. And then we will end up with Comrade Dr. Sputla Ramokgopa, Sputla Ramokgopa, who is our deployee as well as NEC member in the area of energy and electricity. After that, we will then obviously go into our Q&A sessions. So I won't come back until everyone has come to the podium. So we'll start with Comrade Thembi. Then Comrade Thembi will hand over to Comrade Mahlobo, who will then hand over to Comrade Sputla. And then after that, we will then have the Q&A session. Over to you, Comrade Thembi.
Thank you very much, Comrade Nongeba, and good day to members of our media and families watching at home. I think one must start by outlining and reminding one another that the African National Congress adopted in its extraordinary preparations for 2021 local government elections a manifesto which clearly detailed the aspirations of what we would want to achieve for the people of South Africa. And recalling very well the era and the period, the time in which 2021 elections were set, we're just about beginning the recovery from devastating pandemic, COVID-19, as you will recall. And the situation in our country in terms of the mood, the feeling, the spirit, wanted a lift from local government, mostly in basic functions and services. And this manifesto was not just but a collection of statistics, but it was a true response to the issues that we needed to respond to in order to make the lives of South Africans better. An honest assessment, therefore, as we are about to close the term of 2021 local government elections, ending in this November 2026, calls on us to give an honest assessment which must begin with the material reality of the spatial injustice of 1994 or pre-1994. Apartheid local government and how it has been structured and designed, with racial minority being the ones benefiting and entrenched spatial separation. So, Department of Human Settlement, where I happen to be a deployee, for it to achieve its purpose, firstly we need to ensure that we close on these fragmented municipalities, but close on the grossly unequal revenue basis and infrastructure system that is deliberately concentrated in white communities and commercial centers. The smaller the municipality, the poorer it is, with the people unable to benefit but also to contribute. Against this, we must measure ourselves also using the household survey, which I'm sure as members of the media would have been able to come through it as arranged by our Stats SA, which informed us that household access to electricity increased from 76% in 2002 to 90.6% in 2025. Access to improved sanitation from 61.7% to 84% over the same period. By 2024, 87% of the household had access to pipe water or tap water on-site or off-site. But the key access and the message here is the access to potable clean water. The proportion of people living in formal dwellings increased from 65% in 1996 to 88% in 2002. Rather, in 2022, while the portion living in informal dwellings declined from 16.2% to 8.1%. And I will elaborate a bit further when we talk about the informal settlements, which you know very well is quite a key challenge which we are dealing with at Human Settlement in relation to upgrading of informal settlements. So almost 5 million units have been built since 1994, and more than 20 million South Africans have been housed. These are not abstract figures. They talk to the mixed development used as the policy of the African National Congress to ensure that we prioritize our elderly, people with disabilities, our child-headed household, to ensure that our children grow up with sanitation, our families gaining shelter, and our communities connected to basic infrastructure for their citizenship. These advances belong first and foremost to the people whose struggles shaped the democratic state. Earlier on in my introduction, I articulated that there was inequality in terms of how services are received. However, progress have also can't conceal the deep inequalities that we still face. A household may be counted as connected to water while enduring repeated interruptions. Electricity connections, and my colleagues will talk to that, and the progress that they have made. A formal house located far from work, transport, and public amenities may reproduce apartheid geography in a new form and perpetuate the spending of the earnings of our people into transportation. Access must therefore be measured together with reliability, quality, affordability, dignity, and spatial justice. The central conclusion of this review is that the democratic state has expanded the social wage on a historic scale, but the quality and the reliability of municipal delivery has not advanced at the same pace. This contradiction must be confronted. The next phase cannot be limited to adding connections. It must renew infrastructure. It must professionalize administration. It must protect poor households and must also ensure every service works. How did we improve from housing delivery to spatial justice? Our programs must be understood not only as a housing construction program, but as an important instrument for addressing spatial inequalities inherited from apartheid. In the year under close or review of our Manifesto of 2021, we committed ourselves as the African National Congress to fast-tracking land reform and rural development through the facilitation of the release of state land, while also committing to the upgrading of informal settlements, countering urban sprawl, and ensuring that communities are located on well-situated land. The scale of the current human settlement programs demonstrate the extent of the investment being made across the country. The portfolio contains about 1,887 selected projects across 9 provinces. The 174 municipalities representing a recorded investment value of over 160 billion. These projects are expected to deliver approximately 900 units or related outputs, benefiting over 385,000 households. Of the total record project value, it will be approximately 62 billion, or a 38.7 has already been spent, as you would want to put it in the deliverables of the 174 municipalities. While 98.6 billion, or a 61.3, remains to be delivered, is currently what we are busy with. This means that a significant portion of work remains concentrated in projects that are still under implementation and require sustained delivery momentum. In all the previous years, AG has put our planning to test And that had kept the department in an unqualified audit mode. And for the first time, we broke that mode because we were able to even break down which are planned, which are pre-planned, which have been approved by municipality, etc., giving us a total of about 20,000 hectares from the 35 hectares that has been delivered or donated through various departments, including the Department of Public Works, from the stage and land acquisition project. This demonstrates the scale activity throughout our country. KwaZulu-Natal has the number or a highest number of recorded projects at about 498, followed by the Western Cape at 383, Mpumalanga at 252, Northwest at 220. I would want to put a specific emphasis on Northwest and Free State. They've made a great improvement. In fact, for the first time in the reallocation of stop and reallocation, Free State has been benefiting. They're sitting with quite a number of what we call incomplete projects. They are sitting largely at the 212 projects that have been, of which 85 have been identified and they are currently on the ground. What is an incomplete project? It could have been a house that was left at the slab level or at the roof level, or it was not built properly. We had went through the process of that assessment. Limpopo at 220, Limpopo at 182 and Gauteng at 158. I want to put context into Gauteng. They received the largest share of our budget because you will recall that DORA, the Division of Revenue, is allocated by population and size, which means the amount who are congested are more in Gauteng. So they will get a larger portion of the budget in terms of allocation. If you look into 498 and 182, you may think they are not delivering. Not really. They are maximizing and densifying more. So the number of projects is not necessarily related to the number of output that will be coming. On Thursday, for example, we were handing over around 790 of the units that have been built as for the Greater Johannesburg in Jabulani. So that's just for the one project. Whereas in other areas, you may find that we call a project just 120 houses, but there are 700 in one project. So I think I'm making that distinction. 126 in the Eastern Cape and 61 in Northern Cape, and 7 in the Free State. As I had explained, that in Free State they're sitting more with a backlog, either from asbestos, from the 2-roomed old houses, which Cabinet took a decision that they must be demolished. So they are on a catch-up and doing extremely well in terms of eradication of those programs. A critical component of transforming human settlements is ensuring that houses are built on land that enable communities to participate fully in social and economic life. So there's 94 priority human settlement development areas. That is declaring around 136 development priority areas for human settlements. And these are intended to drive spatial transformation. Our policy says from any CBD, you move 30 kilometers inward towards a city. That's what we approve, to be getting closer. But you will recall the State of the Nation, where the President announced, one, the moving into government old buildings, and you might have seen Tshwane and Johannesburg already going back into the spaces where they owned buildings for us to repurpose and roll out social housing. You might have seen, for example, we have handed over a building in Boksburg for social housing, which has got over 900 units in Midrand, over 990, just close to the Gau train station, to make sure that people who are using and utilizing those buildings are able to move a bit closer to where they are servicing. We have a total of about 14,000 hectares that we have received through 167 land parcels from the Department of Public Works. A further 2,698 has also been released through our Housing Development Agency. You might have seen that those packets are rightly within the CBDs in the city of Cape Town, Bramfontein here, and many other areas. I think it's about total of 9 land parcels which are already at the project readiness for implementation. 16,000 from land and redistribution hectares in the period of 2014 to 2019. You might have seen us handing over title deeds besides to the farmers, but the owners of the houses that we would have built in the Northwest. We've delivered around 231,000 service sites, and I would like to spend a second in defining why service sites. If you do not qualify for a RDP, which means you earn beyond 3,500, but you are not necessarily a specialized category, we usually call them a missing gap or a missing middle, which does not necessarily, is not missing because it is being rejected by a commercial bank. It could be that a person is unemployed but needs a place to be able to build for himself or herself. What is a key cost driver is the land. So the state has availed over 300,000 in this period that we are reviewing. Service sites, what does that mean? We give you land where we have built internal roads for you, we have put lights for you, we have put electricity for you, and we have put water connectivity. You may put your shack. With time, you will then be able to develop. And this is a category which has been introduced, including what you will call first home financing, which talks to a missing gap, but a missing gap which is employed. There is a distinction there. For the period in terms of what we are doing jointly with the Department of Electricity and the Department of Water and Sanitation, we've dealt with about 5,916 subsidies which have been dispersed for first home financing, but also in areas of the rural municipalities. Earlier on, our program was not accepting permission to occupy, what we call PTO, in rural areas. We are now rolling out first home financing. So we are separating it from mortgage, which I think we've covered in the period under review, over 24,000, and non-mortgaged, which is more accelerating, where people are building for themselves, but in land where it is communal, and we accept but measure it very properly. I would like to conclude, Chair. I know I have not touched on all the areas, but I'm mindful of time to share with my colleagues as well. But just to touch on what are we doing in 2026, 2027 in relation to our Human Settlement Development Grant and Business Plan, which provides for the allocation of about 13 billion, when we're targeting in this category 12,300 service sites and over 38,000, close to 39,000 housing units, and 11,195 solar installations, and over 20,000 title deeds, a number which we have already surpassed. Standing here, we have already circulated over 80,000 title deeds, which was the target which we had set for the entire MTF. We don't want to celebrate it because we do believe that we now need to build and register at the same time. So as we hand you over the key, we must hand you over your right and of security of tenure. But it is important to deal with the backlog, and we are prioritizing that backlog to make sure that each and every Friday, myself, the mayors, the MECs, and everybody else go to our communities to make sure that we restore the dignity of our people. One project which I want to talk about, I don't want to claim all is well and good. We've missed our target in relation to community residential unit, what you call hostels, or what we are trying to improve into family units. And the challenge is not finances. We were targeting 18,000, we're only able to upgrade right up to 13,000, falling short with about 4,900. And the challenge has mostly been social facilitation. It does seem like our policy does not align to what people who are currently staying in what is designed as hostels believe in, family units, but also believe in a unit that they've inherited previously and have not been paying for it. Some, yes, accept the family unit but rent the other rooms out and the family doesn't come. Some do not even believe in the building. Some wants to keep the old and the new at the same time, even if the old is dilapidated and can collapse at any minute. So we've taken a pull back, we're back into the table and we're engaging, but the program does not mean it is not concluding or continuing. For example, in Mamelodi, there's Kingsley, which we are trying to put our heads together on to make sure that we deliberate on them. In eThekwini, we are having one in Msunduzi, which we are trying to put our heads together on it to conclude, complete, hand it over, so that we don't leave them incomplete, even if we are to change the formula. In relation to our social housing, we want now to move from policy-wise, which is what we're committing to South Africans going 2026 onward, on improvement on our rent-to-buy policy in relation to our flat package on what we call social housing, which are currently rented. And the interest of people who have been staying there for the number of years are now showing they've made those places home, and they would want to begin to engage with government. Learning from other countries, it is done. Government can be able to ensure security of tenure for people and packages that they've built. Thank you very much, colleagues. I will come for questions.
Thank you so much, our acting national spokesperson, Comrade Nongeva, to Comrade Dr. Sputla Ramakupa and Comrade System, and to the colleagues who have joined us here. The statement has been circulated to you. We will just give some summary key issues. With respect to water and sanitation, what I will deal with, firstly, is the question of access to water and sanitation, supply and reliability. Then the second component, I will deal with water security, because remember, water is a component that is economical, environmental, social, including security component. There are those, Comrade Nongeva, that will be worried that will we run out of water or not. The ANC government has actually provided the highest level of leadership when it comes to water security and water supply and sanitation supply in the country. For the first time, we know that this matter is led by His Excellency Comrade President Cyril Ramaphosa. In the same vein, he elevated issues of energy security. Therefore, the ANC cannot actually be accused of not providing leadership. Secondly, water is now in everybody's lips. In other words, the water agenda and the policy directive, there is clarity. Over the last 32 years, we must know that the ANC have moved strides to ensure that access to water, to those that were denied access to water, including the benefits associated to water and sanitation, by this year, 2026, our access to water has increased to 91.3%. In other words, we are on track to achieve our SDG imperatives. There is a remaining 87.7% that we need to deal with. Access to sanitation currently stands at 85.6%. But when we give you these figures, there is a qualification. The qualification is around issues of reliability. The number of days per week, per year, in which water will be available in the tap. These numbers must be looked at the backdrop of the experience of communities where water supply remains intermittent, on the challenges of infrastructure that is aging or deteriorating, and some households, they continue to be exposed to water insecurity, including even businesses. Therefore, the task of government is not only to expand access, but to ensure that water and sanitation services in the main are reliable, sustainable, and are capable to meet the demands of our growing population and the demand for our economy. Our movement has recognized the seriousness of the issues. As I've indicated earlier on, it is now one of the apex priorities of our government because it has an impact on livelihoods, it has an impact on our economy, and all these other issues. Hence, His Excellency Comrade Ramaphosa has actually unveiled, after engaging with all the stakeholders and the experts, including those in the water sector, we do have a national water action plan where it is very clear that these are the decisions in the immediate, in the short term, medium term, and long term that they will have to be taken. And I can tell you now that action plan is very sound, is very cogent. The only issues we need to be tested on our discipline on issues of execution. But this issue of water, constitutionally, we must be able to underscore one matter, that these actions that are being taken by government, we are not going to leave municipalities alone to resolve on their own issues where capacity is inadequate. The ANC is very clear. We sit in a committee of the NEC called Local Government Intervention. Where they are struggling, even if it's a constitutional imperative, we will come in, support. But where further failures are happening, we will have no choice but to intervene. Therefore, we say it requires a coordinated action across all spheres of government. It requires stronger institutions and more investment in infrastructure and decisive intervention where municipalities are unable or are unwilling to fulfill their responsibilities. I can hasten to indicate that in terms of grants and subsidies over the next 3 years, our ANC-led government has put aside 156 billion rands. 156 billion to support issues of access to water and sanitation at a local level. That will include the 55 billion that we've given in each and every year, cross-cutting on the work that the Minister of Human Settlement, Comrade Tembi, and others are doing, running more than 800 projects just to ensure that the right to water and the benefits associated are not undermined. I will speak to some few examples, Comrade Nongeva, where we can demonstrate that the ANC has intervened to change the course. But there is a matter that the President is worried about. It's something we called unserved communities. Those communities, since the dawn of democracy, they don't have water infrastructure. There is no bulk water that is available. Those communities in rural communities, in private lands and in the farms, and then in certain areas called informal settlements. Government has made a decisive approach to say those communities, they too under the sun, their rights must be respected. We have started a massive program of unserved communities where we look at the availability of other water sources like groundwater, looking at spring protection, but also looking at what can I call it, sand water abstraction. Those are the technologies. In July this year, celebrating President Nelson Mandela's birthday, President Ramaphosa went to Hammanskraal. You know the challenges of Hammanskraal. For the first time, our approach was that these communities, they too, especially Kekana Gardens and other areas, must have water. We're able to use something called decentralized water solution. In other words, you get the groundwater as a source. We have the abstraction in terms of the borehole. You treat the water because of issues of densification and the possibility of pollution. But then from there, you do the reticulation. President opened 27 projects there. Equally, she was with Comrade Pemima Jodina. I was with the Deputy President in KwaZulu-Natal. We opened another additional 27 projects. And we also went into an area called in the Eastern Cape, where our DSG, Marupini, as the minister in the president, we did. In other words, we did 67 projects. The 27 number is a number that indicates that Madiba was kept in incarceration for 27 years. That's how we are reaching out. About a week ago, we were here in Gauteng, in Randfontein. We were able to launch more than 400 what we call dignified sanitation systems, so that we can be in a position that those that don't have decent sanitation, as part of the celebration of the Women's Month, we also did another one in Mpumalanga, in Delmas. We are rolling them out. All these are meant as government intervention to support unserved communities with respect to water and sanitation. And these are the projects that are funded through our own infrastructure intervention. One of the things that we wanted to indicate is the investment government is making with a number of projects. As I was saying, per year, we're having 800 projects. Where we're deployed with Comrade Pemi, we're having more than 400 projects that we're running now. In the Eastern Cape, we're trying to assist them in Ngamago in terms of regional bulk water scheme that will benefit more than 78,000 communities at close to 800 billion rand. It will cover 792 million rands. It will cover 120 villages. We're also intervening at Ndlambe, where we're spending more than 423 million rands to help those communities, especially their 12,000 households in Port Alfred and Alexandra. In Limpopo is well known the issue of Giyani, where a number of villages were not actually getting water. We are pleased to indicate that even if they were late in terms of unblocking these projects that were delayed, now currently about 4.8 billion rand, we have completed the Nandoni to Ntsami pipeline. 24 villages, as I speak right now, they have access to water. Well, there were issues around planning, wherein the treatment plant that must treat the water that arrives in Ntsami was not adequate to treat these additional volumes that water come from Nandoni in Vembe, but also the additional water that come from Mikilitaba, because now the water is running in Mikilitaba after wet good rains. That's what it's happening. Currently, we are on phase 2. We should be able to complete the remaining 31 villages. In KwaZulu-Natal, there is an area called Umkanyagud, a biggest project that has taken many years to support those particular communities. We are spending 4.9 billion rand around Umandlagazi bulk water scheme. That is going to support 33,000 households, including those communities around Jozini Dam that has always been full and be used only for agriculture. For the first time, that dam is used for both domestic, economically, and other issues. And those projects we have started even last year to hand over. Even between now, every Friday, we should be able to go on the ground to support our communities. We know that there is a pressure on our water resources, but we can assure you that our country is not going to run out of water. But however, we must qualify, we do have localized deficit. In Limpopo, in an area called Mikilitaba, for nearly 20 years, communities had no water there because it ran dry. There was a competition between agriculture and domestic use. Then we had to bring in Judge Ngwebe to deal with issues of reallocation. Fortunately, the water is running because of the good rains. The NWC, Comrade Nongceba, we went to the Eastern Cape, Nelson Mandela Bay, problems of no water there. And when you look in terms of that particular route and the Kucha there, but at least we did get good rains, though infrastructure was damaged, the system looks in good position. The very same thing around in the Western Cape, Neisner, where to intervene in George. Those are the issues. But all in all, we do have more than 70 projects amounting more than 140 billion rands to ensure that we build more dams, we rehabilitate some of our systems. We don't have problems that the country will run out of water. In the very same vein, the water from Lesotho is coming. As we speak now, the project is at 57%. Comrade President Ramaphosa went into Lesotho with ourselves, with Comrade Pemi, Now we know that we are going to start the issues of the commissioning and the embankment that must happen today in Mtlotlong. The bridge has been done, very, very beautiful bridge. We are going to go now and open additional bridges because of the win-win situation. Gauteng is going to get additional, closer to 1 billion liters cubic per annum. That is going to come to Gauteng. We are not going to have water security problems in Gauteng. In the Western Cape too, we have moved there to help the farmers in Glen Williams. That dam, we are raising it by more than 13 meters. We are currently at 47%. All the work that is a little bit difficult. Those are the things that are aimed to ensure water security. You go to Tzaneen Dam, it's also going to be completed early next year. You name a number of them. KwaZulu-Natal, we look at Mkomazi, and then we go to Mzimvubu. Very long delayed for quite some time, but the team has started to build a dam there. Therefore, when it comes to water security, let's assure South Africans we are doing something, and those things are starting to give us the results that we need. We will continue to build more dams. We are a water-scarce country. There is nothing wrong, but our attitude is to build small dams, what we call it balancing dams. Remember what we do? We share the rivers. We normally flood Mozambique. We are going to have to catch water between Limpopo and ourselves before it actually floods Mozambique. The water that comes between us and the Eswatini, that's what we are going to do, including the water that will come from Lesotho to Botswana and from Zimbabwe to this side. Those are the major projects we will do. But in terms of the ANC water policy, we are going to explore more groundwater. Groundwater is an option. There is a lot of water that is available in the Witwatersrand region in terms of the mining activities that has happened, and we are spending a lot of money in terms of acid mine drainage, including the issues of reclamation. That's what we will do. Reuse is not a taboo. We are going to have to spend more money on reuse. Those who speak about Hammanskraal in the main is part of the reuse in terms of increasing the yield on the system. It comes from those effluent from communities, and we need to move. Desalination, South Africa will move with desalination. Whether you go to the Eastern Cape, there is a plant in the Western Cape in KwaZulu-Natal, and we are looking at issues. Now that Comrade Sputla, we have stabilized electricity availability. Now we know that we can be able to deal with that particular aspect, but equally we know that the issues of the management of the brine. The other matter that is being raised is the issue of water quality deterioration. We have reintroduced the drop reports. They were stopped. We have issued them twice now. Now we know how municipalities are performing. Water quality deterioration is an issue. We should be able to deal with those who are polluting, and in the very same period, action has been taken to more than 57 municipalities that have done pollution, so that we can be able to do that. If we don't do that, it will have an impact on health, but the cost of treatment of water is going to be high, and it will be impacting on citizens, and then including the issues of reducing non-revenue water. On sanitation, one of the biggest issues around sanitation now, more than 85.6%, with different kind of sanitation technologies, SWAT, non-SWAT, including those that are using less water, is our deployment. And in many communities, we can see that particular progress that is being made. When it comes to sanitation, there have been intervention by our government over this period. One of the biggest interventions was to be made in Machabeng. Machabeng, we go to all Kutlaneng and all these other areas who are in the streets, polluting our environment, including agricultural land. We're able to open, with that intervention of Section 63, more than 14 pump stations. They are all functional as we speak right now. But the work is far from being complete, and we need to address the issues of delivery of water, because there's high levels of non-revenue water that is there. But the issues of illegal mining, who wants the effluent for oxidation and reduction of the cold material, is one of the challenges we face. And the multidisciplinary teams are very important. In Free State, We are also helping in an area called Maluti Apofung. Maluti Apofung challenges, the intervention has been made. Progress around their wastewater systems has been attended to, but we must attend to issues of operation and maintenance and infrastructure failure. But access to water in Maluti, whether those are the dams that are there and building the additional treatment works that they needed to be able to supply the areas of Harrismith and others, is the work that is continuing. We intervened in Mpumalanga, Likwa. Remember, Likwa was put by the courts that the Minister of Finance is the mayor there. We are happy to report. Remember, Likwa, even business wanted to run away. All their sewer problems into school, public facilities, pollution of the valley, we have actually resolved the problem. After we resolved the problem, we spent a lot of money, more than 350 million rands. Communities now, they complain about water access. And we are pleased that the water treatment works, more than 450 million, has been concluded. The minister, myself, and the president will make time. We should be going there before, very shortly, to go there. The water is now available. The problem is the distribution network. Comrade Sputla helped us with the issue of Nsistembi when you go to Pulugwane. Pulugwane, there's the Sishiko water treatment works, the Blood River and Sand River. We're able to deliver that water using the groundwater system, and that budget facility, the Olifants Fort Ebenezer, is on progress to ensure that there is issues of water security. Mfuleni, the biggest problems of sewer, entire system, more than 20-something pumps taken out, we're able to intervene. We've replaced all those and refurbished the strategic pumps that were required, added additional capacity to get the sewer there, but there are still challenges at Mfuleni. One of the challenges is the capacity and the liquidity issues and instability politically, but we've been there on the ground on daily basis with our local government intervention team, and we're very pleased that for sustainability, we've brought in Rand Water with a balance sheet at risk. We're doing the SPV. It started to take off, but we're not at a stage where we needed to say that we've concluded those issues. The other area I thought we should be able to indicate, in Tshwane, we did spend more than 760 million. In Tshwane, it is one of the models we implemented. In the absence of a proper treatment works, we deployed a package plant, which is one of the biggest in terms of its size in the continent, 50 mega million liters per day. And the president has given that is not a panacea to the problems of Tshwane, because there is a deficit of about 20 to 30 megaliters. But in the meantime, there is a sustainable supply, including taking into those other areas. There is low scope in Mpumalanga. It covers Mpumalanga and it covers the area of Sikukune in Limpopo. And the project is moving so well that these both communities of Tembisileani, JS Moroka, and also Sikukune in terms of Elias Mtswalet and the others is being attended to. We are also looking at the issue of eThekwini is an example that we can be able to say government, in terms of the president, has intervened. We have stabilized eThekwini. That example where you have issues of water insecurity, you know that even now they are hosting the SADC summit. They have hosted a number of interventions because the presidential working group with business, with experts and others, they are able to bring that. I was there in a week's time, like last week. I've seen the aqueduct. They have actually done a good job, attending even in terms of those communities that are actually in the periphery of KwaZulu-Natal. Johannesburg has been one of our difficult points with respect to intervention. You know they are part of the presidential working group. There was capacity and wherewithal of working together, wherein we hosted G20 without any worries around availability of infrastructure, whether water and electricity. But it looks like there was the dropping of the ball. We are closer to the situation. We have taken a decision. Rand Water has been agreed to. that there are going to be an agency to support these other organizations, including the ring fencing of water and sanitation infrastructure. But work is happening on the ground. Just recently, there was an issue of the protest in Melville. There was a scheduled maintenance that impacted there, but the reports, the water has been starting to stabilize again. We just have to improve the issues of communication. Let me conclude, Comrade Nongaba, to say that the ANC has made a decision. One of the decisions is to say where municipalities are failing, within the available statutory resources, we shall intervene. We're not going to say it's not our job. You do your job, but if you can't do your job, we cannot actually expose to citizens to mediocrity, non-delivery. That's the decision. That's why I'm making example of interventions. On financing, we are mobilizing different financial mechanisms. One of that is the government grants and subsidies of more than 156 billion, ring-fenced, sales of water and revenues that are there, blended finance, a number of projects, more than 66 billion, just to be able to ensure water supply and sanitation security, including bringing private sector funding. Go to Limpopo as an example. Working with the mines, we are implementing more than 26 billion rand project that will give water to Sikukune, the Nebo Plateau, Mkhalokwana and Pulogwane, and the mining sector is working well. We've overseen that one. We've been in a position to deploy private sector to build wastewater treatment works of a top quality around Mkhalokwana so that they can unblock development. I was in the Northern Cape working with the mines. We are doing more than 100 kilometers of pipeline in the Valga-Mahara system. Working with private sector is not a taboo. We are not privatizing. We are not doing digitization. We just mobilize the capacity that is there. Our approach, the asset, which is the pipeline and other infrastructure, remain the public trustee. We are also deploying technical skills. Nobody must work in this particular space without having the requisite skills. Issues of training and issues of those who get to be deployed there must have the necessary capacity that are there, and we do an assessment. The delivery model is changing. We are saying that those municipalities who are failing, we are looking at alternative mechanisms within the law without taking away the powers there. Whether you use concessions are not something new. It has happened in Mpumalanga, in Bombela. Those who stay there where I come from there, we don't have problem in the area of operation. Those that are under the district in KwaZulu-Natal, Ilembe, is called Ilembe district. We have Caesar water there. Palito and those other areas, not disruption for water, but they even give water there. Thus, concessions. We also use the other performance-based contracts. The last point is the issue of dealing with corruption and vandalism in the water sector. These conditions around vandalism of infrastructure, we work with SIU, the Hawks in a fusion center mechanism, but the deployment of new technologies, whether you do the main hole, whether you do the pipes, we must look at new technologies so that those who are actually having intentions material, they don't cause problem. Removing issues like water tankers that are privately owned, because if they are privately owned, you'll have an incident where someone will vandalize infrastructure so that the tanker will be able to run. But we also need to look at security plan on how to secure the assets using technology, rapid response. And at eThekwini, for a number of days, water was not running. One person decided to go to a pump station there, just making it as a room there, decided to switch it off there. You switch it on and off. Therefore, the issues of guarding and using the right security aspect is a mechanism to go. But for water to be able to succeed, to be delivered, there is a precondition. We must allow the reforms the ANC has undertaken to fix local government. Because if local government is not fixed, the delivery of water and sanitation can be compromised. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very very much, and once more good day to everyone. Just on the issues of electricity. So the ANC had characterized load shedding as an existential crisis. It delivered a devastating blow to the economic growth prospects of the country, and we had to take extraordinary measures to resolve load shedding. And we have come to accept that load shedding was, in fact, avoidable. But what it does, it reflected on the accumulated weaknesses in maintenance, delayed investment, governance failures. It was also a function of corruption and the slow implementation of the necessary decisions. And it is for this reason that fixing the energy crisis was at the forefront of our renewal agenda going into this term under review. As you all know, President Ramaphosa introduced the Energy Action Plan as an intervention mechanism to ensure that we fix ESCOM, we are able to accelerate private sector investment in new generation capacity, we are able to accelerate public procurement of new generation, we are able to incentivize rooftop solar solutions, and also continue with the unbundling of ESCOM from a vertically integrated monopoly and introducing competition. And we can see the results now. We have moved from a period of a deficit in relation to the aggregate generation capacity to a situation of excess. So we are over-generating. We're in a good space even during the coldest period, just the other few days. No challenges from a generation point of view. We still had excess generation capacity. So that's how far we've come. I mean, just to give you a sense, when we're experiencing load shedding, at the peak of load shedding, the energy availability factor was 48%. On the 26th of July, about 2 weeks ago, the energy availability factor was at over 80%, the first time since 2017, and this is sustained. However, we are of the opinion that we are at no place to declare victory because of the monster of load reduction. So we are taking every measure necessary to ensure that we end load reduction. And the challenge here is that without ending load reduction, we are going to swell the message that we have ended load shedding, because the experience of an average citizen who is subjected to load reduction is that is a change of names. They're still subjected to the same levels of interruption. And we know that load reduction is linked to overload in the networks, issues of illegal connection, vandalism, transformer failures, and inadequate distribution investment from both ESCOM and municipalities, and the exclusion of the many qualifying households from free basic electricity. So this is a technical problem, but it manifests itself as both a social, economic, and governance problem. And it is for these reasons that we are going to accelerate the effort of ending load shedding. I did make the commitment, the ANC made a commitment to end load reduction. I'm happy to indicate that of the 9 provinces, 7 are load reduction free. Left with Gauteng and KZN, we are accelerating our efforts to ensure that we are able to end load reduction in those areas. I also want to indicate that we are reaffirming our stance with regards to our commitment to just energy transition, and the transition is necessary to ensure that we are able to achieve energy security, we reduce emission, improve air quality, and open new paths of industrial development. It must, however, be just in both outcomes and its methods. Workers and communities whose livelihoods depend on the coal value chain must not carry the burden of change while the benefits flow elsewhere. Renewable energy procurement has expanded, as you know, and the legislative reforms have enabled municipalities to procure power directly, and this is going to diversify generation sources but also expand the revenue flow of municipalities. We are working on expanding the grid, 4,000 kilometers of grid expansion. We're going to modernize. The size of the ticket there is 440 billion rand. And we want to industrialize on the back of this effort so that as we transition, we are able to build new skills, invest in research and development, and ensure that our manufacturing and advanced engineering capabilities get to benefit out of the efforts that we are making going forward. We accept that the cost of electricity is the elephant in the room. We have ended load shedding. I made a commitment. We are ending load reduction, just left with pockets in the two provinces of KZN and Gauteng. But still, the electricity is available but not accessible. By that I mean average households, so not just the poor but even the middle class. They are finding it very difficult to purchase electricity because over the past years, since 2007, electricity tariffs have increased by over 907%, and over the same period, inflation has increased by 150%. So you can say that it's eroding the disposable income of households. And we know that household income, or spending rather, constitute about 60% of South Africa's GDP. So we have to resolve the issue of the cost of electricity. What are we proposing in this regard is that we must increase the free basic electricity allocation from the current 50 kilowatt hour to a number that we will determine, and that number is a function of the changing consumption profile. When we brought in this intervention about 23 years ago, a poor household consumption pattern was different from today. You go to any household today, they will have a television. They are going to have cell phones, they have Wi-Fi, some degree of connectivity, they have a fridge, they have an electric kettle. So we need to support that kind of consumption and completing those studies. So we must increase that. The second thing that we are proposing is that there has to be transparency in the determination of the tariff. So it's an unbundled tariff, it's transparent. So we're saying that there has to be a cap on what is allowable from both Eskom and municipalities in relation to technical and non-technical losses. What's happening now is that the consumer is burdened in relation to technical losses. If municipalities losing X amount on technical losses as a result of under-investment in the refurbishment and maintenance of the reticulation and distribution infrastructure, they burden that on the end consumer. It is found in the tariff, and we say that there must be a cap in doing that. And then we also are advocating for municipalities to use the current institutional framework. As you know, that the reforms are allowing for self-generation. A lot of municipalities are not exercising that right, and that is going to help them to rely less and less on Eskom to self-generate using cheaper sources of electricity, or if you like, energy sources such as wind and solar. Solar in all parts of the country, wind in other parts of the country. So our view is that the cost of electricity is something that requires attention, and we are confident that we are going to succeed in ensuring that we resolve the cost of electricity. Of course, we'll continue to make investments in the distribution and reticulation of infrastructure. We have electricity infrastructure. Similarly to what Comrade Mahlobo has mentioned, we are going to ring-fence revenue that comes from electricity so that it can be reinvested back into the asset base, expand, maintain, and refurbish the electricity infrastructure without undermining the municipality's right to reallocate some of this income. So we're going to introduce a discipline. First, ring-fence, a percentage must be directed towards the asset base, and the rest can be used in other capital requirements of municipalities. Again, getting the right people in the right position, people with the right credentials, the right skills, the right experience is going to help us to address the challenges of municipal electricity infrastructure failure. professionalization of the sector is a key part of the work that we are doing. So we are confident we are moving from a crisis to an opportunity, and electricity is going to offer significant opportunities going forward. As we have seen with the smelters, the first generation of beneficiaries of smelters are proceeding with a reduced tariff. We have been able to save jobs. More smelters will open. We are now going to finalize the second category of municipalities, industries that qualifies. You will see that the South African economy is on the runway. It's about to take a lift and ensure that no one is left behind. We are able to create jobs as we grow the South African economy, and we are able to industrialize on the back of this effort. Thanks.
Thank you very much, comrades. That, comrades, was colleagues rather, the report on our manifesto review process on water, electricity, and sanitation, as well as housing in terms of human settlements. We did say that we did circulate the statement to everyone who's here, which is why some of the comrades did not read it word for word. We'll now go into the Q&A. If you can just state your name, the media house you come from, and who your question is directed to. We shall take. Hi, Snompu. We'll start with you.
From SABC News. The question is directed to Minister Ramaphosa. Minister, there's been some consternation, some concerns raised by unions and other parties around the announcement around the issue of the transmission system operator. Has government been responding to some of these concerns? Because obviously as this move is made, you need to give everybody the sense or the feeling that everyone's on the same page, because there are concerns about privatization. We know that, of course, where private sector is, they're motivated by the profit motive. And when we look at case studies in the UK and in other European countries, people have felt that they've been overcharged and it's not been sustainable, that the model is not right. So how are you responding to these concerns? How do you make sure that you carry everybody forward? Because of course we know that there isn't the money, the fiscus doesn't have enough money to do everything itself. How do you get the balance right?
Okay. Thank you very much, Sisnombu. You just arrived. I love it. Okay.
Good morning, Shannon Merrick's CBC Africa. I apologize for being late. I blame Kaiser Chiefs.
Oh, please.
My three questions. One is, when we talk electricity, sanitation, it deals with black people. It deals with people mainly in informal settlements. Because when we look at informal settlements, people are doing Sinyoka, whether it's water, whether it's electricity, and so on. So what is the ANC going to do to fix the issues specifically in informal settlements, where our people get water and electricity, because it's a human right, whether they have money or not? It shouldn't be because they are poor, they can't get water, they can't get electricity. And then the second part is, now the people that's living, your middle class, your people in RTP houses, nice houses, and so on, they are complaining that they are paying for a service, but we've moved, Minister, from load shedding to load reduction. But for us on the street, it's the same thing. You just change the word, but the impact is the same. There's no water during certain hours. There's no electricity during certain hours. Whether you call it chiefs or pirates, it's soccer. Last but not least, and this is a general question. You know, here in Joburg, we are talking local government elections. Lillian in Goy Street, you know, one of the struggle icons. Such a beautiful name. But 200 million has been wasted. We are 90 days away from the election. That street won't be complete Now, when I'm a voter, I'm saying, but the city of Joburg has failed. The government, the ANC-led government has failed. So all these other things you're talking, water and sanitation, when you failed on such a street with such an important name of one of your own comrades, how do we trust you to fix the water, the sewage, and everything? Thank you.
All right, thank you. There was a hand from newsroom. Then we'll come to you.
Thank you. I'm Juliet Joseph from Newsroom Africa. My question is around housing. So we do understand the backlog, about 2.6 million housing rights. What I wanted to find out is that how do we ensure bringing housing closer to people in terms of jobs and the necessities that they need to be closer to, and also how can we demonstrate that capacity, infrastructure, and land is available to build that extra housing. My question on water is, if access figures look positive, but the reality is that still most people have dry taps, how is government going to measure the actual reality where service is actually working or not? And also you mentioned national governments must intervene when municipalities are failing or unwilling to fulfill their responsibilities. When does government actually intervene? At what point? In the middle or when everything collapses? And what concrete action is being taken against what we call the so-called water mafias or water corruption? What actual action is being taken? And just my last question on electricity, when exactly will the residents of Gauteng and KZN receive, when will load reduction be done away with? Because the minister did mention that now the focus is on those two provinces and also highlighted progress being made with other provinces. Is there a certain deadline or timeline when it comes to ending load reduction in those two provinces? Sorry, the other questions I'm not sure if you're able to answer to. We still don't have a male candidate in Joburg. I don't know if this would be the platform. We've heard about Frank Chikane. When will ANC communicate that? Isn't it getting a bit too late for the Joburg residents?
Only Joburg residents or all residents? We'll answer the question for all residents in the country. Yes, at the back.
Greetings to the leadership and colleagues. Santoni Singh Lajani from Central News. My question is to the Minister of Electricity, Dr. Ramaphosa. Minister, you spoke about the realities of electricity being expensive and the plan of reducing electricity, and you also touched on the 53 units that are being received monthly, especially by the indigent households. My concern or my question is around the working class who may not qualify to be indigent, but also struggling with the increasingly expensive electricity, particularly during the winter season when household consumption is high. Is there maybe a specific plan, whether short-term or long-term, that is in the pipeline to provide relief to this group as well? And also more broadly, what I've also witnessed in communities is that even with the 53 units that is provided to indigent households, during this season, they have to find ways to top up. Is there a plan to maybe increase the 53 units for the indigent households? Thank you.
Thank you very much, colleagues. That was the last hand, if I'm not mistaken. Okay. So we'll start with Dr. Ramaphosa, and then we'll go to Comrade Mahlobo, and then after that we'll come to Comrade Tembi. Just to answer the question about the mayoral candidates announcements, it will be happening in this coming week. The SG will make an announcement during the course of the week on the exact day at which it will be happening, but it will be in this coming week, as we are going to be launching our manifesto on Sunday, the 23rd of August. But the SG will make the announcement on the exact day soon. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for those questions. I will try and answer them in no particular order. Just on the issue of load reduction, Juliet. So I said the 7 other provinces are load reduction free. So we have exceeded our own timelines. So when I'm saying KZN and Johannesburg are still outstanding, it doesn't follow that there's no work being done. So just to give you a sense, I think in Gauteng we are 70% of the way to resolving the load reduction challenge. The timeline we had set ourselves is March 2027 to end it in these two provinces. And I guess that the question to be asked, why is it that it's taking long in these two provinces? First is about the density of the problem. The highest proliferation of informal settlements in the country is in these two provinces. The second one is issues of social facilitation. There are actors that profit from this exercise. So essentially there are many ESCOM in these informal settlements. We have seen encounters of us removing stolen transformers, and this is a combination of a syndicate that involves, in some instances, some delinquent workers from ESCOM and municipalities, and they provide a service in those areas. And they're the ones who are agitating these communities when we go into those spaces to resist any effort for us to make this intervention. But we are working through the respective offices of the premiers, and I must say that we are getting tremendous support, and we are confident of ending load reduction. And then Tabi absolutely correct. Perhaps a bit of context is that annually, National Treasury provides 21 billion for purposes of supporting free basic electricity. It's also the flow of that money. It's not a conditional grant. It just gets to be allocated to municipalities. What we are finding is that there's a redirection of those resources. When it gets to municipality X, they plug their own spending pressures. They pay salaries for that. They pay all sorts of things, and what they don't do is to direct that money to supporting the indigent household. So we are advocating for an institutional relook and how you address that. So you ring-fence that money, doesn't go to municipalities, come to the Department of Electricity and Energy, and then working with ESCOM, we are able to direct it to the end consumer. And then we are able to achieve that by rolling out the smart meters across the board, not just for the poor. So we'll be able to roll out smart meters at the beginning of every month. We front load because it's a smart meter, is intelligent. The load, the units are preloaded. But what that does also, with that allocation, we are able to use alternative sources of electricity generation. We have been rolling out microgrids, and the one that is exemplary is what we've done in the two villages in Musina called Mavete and Madimbo. We have rolled out 1 megawatt of distributed generation. We are able to supply those villages. And in fact, if anything, there's a growth in the village because there's a supply of electricity. And this comes from solar or a combination of solar and battery. And in that way, we are able to provide exceptional amount of reliable electricity to those households. So we are going to achieve universal access by using this, well, it's not any innovation in that it's not novel. It's been done all over, but at the micro level. With regards to the middle class, you are absolutely correct, and not just the middle class, even those in the upper echelons, because I think electricity is expensive for everyone, but devastating to the poor and the middle class because it's a big part of their income. I have said that we are introducing an unbundled tariff, and in fact, on Tuesday, in my other capacity as a minister, we'll be articulating, we've just gazetted the electricity pricing policy. So it's an unbundled tariff. There's a lot of secrets that sits in that tariff that you are paying, and it's just called electricity. You say, no, you must explain what part of the tariff that we are charging you is as a result of the cost of primary energy, converting coal into electricity. And then there must be a line that explains what part of the tariff is as a result of the electricity being brought to my house, transmission and distribution. We'll show you that line. And then you must show what part of the electricity tariff is as a result of people who are just doing administration in the office. We'll show you that line. I tell you, you'll see there'll be an immediate impact on the tariff. We have a number. We know that once you go the transparent route, you will see that electricity should not be as expensive as it is. So that unbundling sits there. The other opportunity we have is in this excess electricity. During the day, there's exceptionally access electricity to a point where we are curtailing. Curtailing means we tell Power Station X, the IPP, please don't give us electricity. But remember, we still pay for it. If I tell the independent power producer, don't give me the electricity, that electricity is deemed to have been delivered. So we're paying billions as a result of telling people, please don't, or the generators don't generate electricity. So we can reduce those losses. And we are reconsidering a tariff during that part of the day. So between, let's say, 8:30 and 4:30, a tariff that is exceptionally reduced. You will change your profile of how you use electricity. You can decide to do washing during that period. So intensify your electricity consumption during that period. And even to where there is such luxury, and I'm not suggesting it applies to other houses, bring your cooking early so that by the time we reach the peak when electricity is expensive, you are not subjected to that. We'll announce that on Tuesday. The point is that it sits, the trick sits in an unbundled tariff. You'll see what an unbundled tariff does. Huge impact on your cost of electricity. We'll be able to address that. And then I did make the point that people can't relate to the distinction between load shedding and load reduction, so we're addressing it. You are absolutely correct. It gives an impression that we are targeting the poor, the black, and those in informal settlement. And that's why I said we have ended it in 7 provinces. We'll end it in all the townships, including the informal settlement. Part of the problem I forgot to mention of Gauteng and KZN is in informal settlements that are not formalized. So we can't go in there and provide electricity when the municipality say, I don't recognize that informal settlement. So it's an issue that we are resolving, and Comrade Tembi will also help in that regard. Of course, it doesn't do the formalization, but just coordinating our interventions is going to help. And lastly, this is Nompumelelo, absolutely correct. We have noted the constellations in the public domain by the unions. First is that the engagements are taking place. Just to explain that the transmission system operator coming into being is a product of the reform agenda. I want to say this unequivocally. Transmission will never be privatized. It's a naturally occurring monopoly. So that much we are agreed. And the President has made that quite unequivocal. What we remain to resolve, and it's an assignment that the President has given to myself, Minister Godongwana, Minister of Finance, and Minister Nchaveni, assisted by the technical team, is the movement of the assets from the ESCOM group going into the TSO, because it's going to attract some fiscal exposure. In that there must be a fair market value of that asset, and because the TSO is a wholly owned state entity, when you move these assets from the ESCOM balance sheet, the group, to this new SOE, you must compensate ESCOM. What is that the billions of rands? Can Minister Godongwana afford it? Can the economy afford it? And all of that. What are the other mechanisms of doing that? What is the pace and scale? So, Nompumelelo, that's where we are. The technical team has come back with what some of the options look like. President says go back and design it a bit more robust. But again, I will be engaging the unions just to take them through what this looks like. You are absolutely correct. I think we can ill afford a situation where there's misunderstanding in the space. We will engage the unions too, so that they were a bit crystal clear about what the process looks like going forward.
Thank you so much, Comrade Nongaba, with the issues raised, and that is, we hope Kaizer Chiefs will do well going forward. We don't want your mood to be dampened. Thank you so much. With respect to the people we are referring to found in informal settlement and black communities, we indicated earlier on that as part of our response as government, there is a certain percentage that doesn't have access to water and decent sanitation. We call them unserved communities. We have started to run out a biggest program. We have taken our grants, looking at other alternative sources of provision of water and sanitation. When it comes to water, I indicated one of the sources, we can look at groundwater. The country is good in groundwater. There is a data, we have it, but there are issues of quality. That's why in those areas like your Kekana Gardens, where somewhere right now in an informal settlement under Victor Kanye and Delmas is called Savannah, there are many, many other areas where we go there. There is groundwater. We go there. We build a treatment works. That is the same like you can find it in affluent areas. We call it a decentralized water supply scheme. Abanyege, they like to call it a borehole. There's nothing a borehole. Borehole is just about drilling the hole. That's not the water language. It's a decentralized water system. We go there. We check how much water is available, the aquifer yield. When the yield is so good, we are then able to draw it by drilling the borehole. But after drilling it, because the soil might be contaminated in informal settlement, human excreta, the kind of the sanitation system they use, whether septic tanks or what, but also South Africa is a mining capital. You find hardcore minerals underground, what we call it, those things, heavy metals in the periodic table. Then we create a treatment system where you have a number of chambers that they can remove what can I call it, turbidity, where the water looks cloudy, heavy metals, whether iron and what. It's a proper treatment system. Then you treat it, but then you create storage tanks so that at least you can create what you call it a continuity. When you store it more, even if anything happens on electricity, whatever happens, we have that redundancy for quite some time. That's why we put a lot of storage tanks. We don't call those storage tanks Jojo tanks because Jojo is a company of another person I don't know. It's just a static tank. We keep it there. Then from there we reticulate. When we reticulate, there are two options we do. Either we do communal. In KwaZulu-Natal, in one that I opened about a week ago, Minister opened some yesterday. You find KwaZulu-Natal is so beautiful with valleys and hills. One house is there, one house is there. Then that's why you create a communal system. They come in there, they are being assessed. But there is issues of sustainability. In Kekana Gardens, guess what? The community, because in other areas there is no electricity for Eskom, we use the solar system. We plug it in people's homes. When we plug it in people's homes so that nobody can steal, that's how we roll out the program. But more importantly, communities, they say, how do we do O&M? It's ours. Small thing that needs to be fixed, they put 30 rands each there per month, then they are able to deal with those issues. That's how we are dealing with decentralized water supply system. But those people must have decent sanitation. Remember, it's so congested. You don't want this pot like you see it in Cape Town there, that inhumane supply system that is being given. Others are using pit latrine. There's a toilet called VIP. I don't know what is VIP about it, because it causes problems in terms of odor and other things. Then we've introduced some of them called dignified low-flush sanitation system. In other words, you put a small storage tank. It's about 500 liters. It's about 5,000 liters. You put it there. You do rainwater harvesting. You can put in there. You can do 1,000 flush with using that one. It uses less. Very, very decent. That was what we are rolling. While we are rolling this program, there's a matter we must discuss: the relationship between citizens and water and sanitation. One of the relationship issue we must address is that some people are misbehaving to do illegal connections. When they do illegal connection, they affect the access to other communities. Municipalities are losing, what do we call it? They are losing the revenue they need. Illegal connection is criminality. It must be stopped. But then the municipalities must work with the communities to formalize it. That's one issue from our ministry we want to raise. The other matter that we wanted to raise is that in certain communities where the infrastructure is not there, alternative water supply system like water cutting, it has to be used, but it can't be a permanent feature. And to avoid issues of corruption, the exposure to exploitation and vandalism and killing of people, we said water cuts must be bought by municipalities in sourcing. That's why eThekwini, they've bought a number of them, Ilembe, Johannesburg, and a number of these municipalities because we have lost people that are there. But equally, these people, because they are there now, there's a matter that must be discussed. People can't cycle everywhere. There must be planned settlements. That's why Systembi, the municipalities, everybody. Some people are actually on a cliff. You travel around the country, we go on the ground. Travel around the country, unstable conditions, causing a lot of problems, and then it becomes like it's a disaster, but it was meant to happen because where people are cycling, whether the relationship with traditional leaders and these other organizations who say people must cycle by force in these areas. And then the question of indigent. When there is issue of load reduction, Minister Ramakhupa, doctor, he has helped us to create something called redundancy. You know, water and electricity, they are like twins like this. If the other one is not available, there's a problem. Normally, there's something we add, is food. It's water, food, and energy nexus. That's the relationship. What we did was to say, let's create something called redundancy, business continuity. In other words, when you build a water plant, normally some of the electricity network, whether they've done the SAPs, what here in Johannesburg, there's one that used to cause problem in Orlando. When it's being erratic, the entire system that must provide close to more than 2 billion liters, it gets affected. And whereas when it gets affected, the reservoirs are low. When the reservoirs are low, we have a problem. They've given us a separate line now. You know, separate line. You go to Amaskral Dam. There used to be problem in Amaskral. We got a separate line. It creates redundancy or business continuity. But we don't only design this system in a manner that we only rely on electricity. We're even having the biggest generators that are there. Powerhouse that you can have a big kilowatts that you can be able to produce. That's what we do so that we don't have problems. In other areas, we use alternative supply, like solar system is a good way. In other communities, you know those wind, you call them van pump, we still use them. Oh, it's a windmill. System. I was born in a farm. Julian, on the issue of reliability, that's why we always qualify it. We have been speaking for launching platform. Diagnosis, what's the problem? I don't want to repeat it. Remember, when the economy grew, when the population grew, the demand, the issues of the infrastructure deteriorate, what are we doing? Let's make an example. Let me not use Johannesburg, because they like using Johannesburg all the time. Let's make an example. We have a municipality called Emalahleni in Mpumalanga. It has about 1,200 kilometers of lines. And those lines are old. It's a mining town, more than 70 years old. The technology that was need to be there, it has to be replaced. What government has said we should do, we have to fight this thing called non-revenue water. Non-revenue water is not about fixing the leaks. It means you must replace the pipes. They are gone. You replace it. When you replace the pipe, in other words, where do you start? That's why we have said these municipalities must ring fence the money from the budget. And Johannesburg has done that. And then we have also said to them, when you ring fence this particular amount and you agree to the reforms, run water and electricity as a localized business entity. I use the word deliberately, localized business entity, but within the control of the state, which is the municipality. Then what you do, you bring in, either you use your own money, but most of them, their money is not sufficient. Many years ago, just to fix the problem, it required about 400 billion rands. It was more than 7 years ago. But the present value of that 400 billion rands, in terms of the current value, is more than 1 trillion rands. Just to do the pipe replacement. It's a massive work. When you actually replace this infrastructure, you do all the engineering things, you put your PRVs, the airlocks are working. all these other things that you are doing. You have to sort out the billing system because you need to look from end to end. We are going to improve the reliability of supply. But when you attend to the pipes, you must still attend to the storage. In Johannesburg, an example as I can make it, you know the Brixton Tower there? It was not working. Now it has been commissioned, is working. It gives us the redundancy. You go to here in Midrand, there were no reservoirs. The reservoirs are there now because storage is how you look at the system. While at the very same time, I've counted the figures by rainwater to do those. Those are the things that will improve the availability. In electricity, Comrade Sputler will talk about energy availability factor. In our case in water, we call it a reliability factor, whether that water is there. That's the massive investment. We don't do it, it's going to be a problem. But because not all the money is available from the fiscus, well, in the fiscus, we have made a decision. Someone has neglected O&M for some time. We said the ANC put about 8%. Probably when the ANC reveals its manifesto, we have to consider that there's a deficit on O&M. So that we can do that, the numbers must be a little bit higher. And then the conditional grants, you can do that. Then you bring something called performance-based contracts. Performance-based contract will assist either as an SPV, a concession, whatever you do. It helps. You go to Mbombela, where I stay. It's not operating everywhere. In the area I stay, I'm not going to tell you here, where I stay in Nelspruit. In that particular area, those guys have the financial muscle. They have the technical team. When the infrastructure fails, the response time is like this. In few hours, they are able to do that. It will improve your reliability. Therefore, this is one of the biggest issues. When we deal with reliability, where do we start? We start with non-revenue water. Non-revenue water is at 47%. You go to at Devon, it was 62%. We've reduced it now to 58% because we're replacing pipes. And then there are many, many other areas where I can make that particular issue that I thought we needed to see. But one of the things we do, because if municipalities are not coming to the part, if municipalities have capacity problem, we normally give them conditional grants. We normally do direct grants. What we have chosen to do now, we have converted a number of direct grants into indirect grants. You don't do your job, we hold back the grant, we bring in a capable institution, whether it is the water board, whether it's another municipality district. There are many examples. Mpumalanga, the district is implementing. In KwaZulu-Natal, I know Zululand is implementing. In Limpopo, we're doing the same. Then that's what they do. They pick up the projects, push them in such a way that you can do some of those things, whether you look at Mopan. That's the withholding of the grants. But equally, we're then in a position to go and get something called blended finance. Comrade Sputler, when he was still in the presidency, remember there's an infrastructure SA that is there, IFSA. We are working so well. Look at the business plan, the bankability, see what we can do, go to the market. As I'm saying, water is the biggest beneficiary. Whether you go to the non-revenue water system at Tegwini, whether you go to Pulugwane, the Ebenezer, Olifants, there are many of these projects, billions of rands, so that we can be able to deal with those ones. Blended finance is a mechanism. I made an example of private sector involvement. We ran that project. Personally, I dealt with the project of Mkhalakwena. Best wastewater treatment works. One of the biggest mining companies nearly left South Africa on the basis that they were just asking for effluent, not potable water. Imagine effluent. Give us effluent for our production. We're able then to be helped by Minister Kotongwane in terms of the regulatory regime that was complex. Then we're able to build that particular plant. For the first time, it's managed by the locals. That mine has opened up its other operation. President went there earlier this year. It's the biggest investment of more than 4 billion rands. And then, but these people now, they've unblocked the housing development. They need to produce more sewer. To produce more sewer system, must give them more grants to build more housing. That's what we've actually done. On News 24, there's something that they're asking about Johannesburg. Johannesburg, there's been issues of politicking. Now they are going to the election. everybody, one thing that you can't fault about Johannesburg, Comrade Data has finalized the water plan to respond to Johannesburg. As technical people, I can assure you, this is the best plan. This is the best plan. The problem we had was a behavior of certain councillors who behaved as if they are not part of a council. Certain decisions, they were supposed to make them together. One of the decisions they never made over time was to ring-fence the budget for water and electricity. Then they chose to make that a scapegoat. It's not a mayoral decision. It's a council decision. But President assigned us. We worked with them closely. For the first time, from the 1st of July, they've done the ring-fencing now. They've done the ring-fencing. Johannesburg Water, City Power, and others are being run as trading entities. I went with Comrade Kotongwane. We met with Johannesburg leadership, with all MMCs. We are going to be going back now in September so that we can look at the incentive scheme. Remember, we have about 54 billion rands that we have just to be able to assist on the reforms for electricity and water and see what they can be in a position to do. That's what I can be able to report. In Durban, which is a Tegwini, I'm very pleased that in the water now, they've appointed the MD in terms of the new requirements. Professional people, business acumen, engineering, because we're not taking less than engineering, and we want civil, not a technician, Comrade Sputla. Sifuna nje umuntu oyi-PR eng. Yabona, ngoba to run that entity is a serious business. And these metros, all of them, under the ANC, they are responding well in doing that. The National Action Plan, what the other one in the business they have raised, it has been unveiled. One thing unique about this action plan, it has a whole society approach. Comrade Tembi, Comrade Sputla, all of us, we sit there. SALCA sits there. It was canvassed with all the mayors, canvassed with SALCA, canvassed with business, and that action plan has those 5 imperatives. Where local government does not deliver, national government will come in, and we have started coming in. Unserved communities, water boards, MISA, they are deployed there. Secondly, we are sorting out the financing issues. That's why all those grants, whether they are water related, they are all over, we are able to have a line of sight. We know what we are going to do. The deployment of technical skills, that's what we are working jointly to be able to assist. That's the mode we are in, including the issues of corruption. The action plan is available on site in the presidency, and people can access it, but we'll continuously give progress report on its implementation.
I promise you I'm going to be brief. Because I think I indicated in the background that there are areas where there are commonalities and we jointly work as a team, and I'm sure you have been able to connect those dots. But I just wanted to contextualize what Comrade Sputla raised in relation to the question of load reduction and why KZN and why Gauteng are still, and he explained that the issue is more about formalization. Currently, we're sitting at 4,075 informal settlement in the country, with Gauteng carrying no less than 886 of them, and KZN around 600, over 600. And the trick about informal settlement is that someone is building a shack as we are standing here, as we are talking, and there may be 20 or there may be whatever, creating a settlement in a very short space of hours. So they rely on the program that we are running, that I articulated in terms of availability of land, state land, but the large chunk of what is remaining in the 2 provinces are areas where we're supposed to be undertaking ourselves as human settlements relocation. There's no way you can put power in a wetland, whether there is a shack or not, because the only thing you're trying to do is to kill those people. So you need an in-depth discussion in relation to facilitation. And it becomes a motive in some instances. There's issues of graves, there's issues of sentiment. You know, I went at the beginning of the year, mid-year last year, to visit the community of Lamontville, which had been washed away close to Umlazi River. And the only thing they wanted was government to rebuild where they've been washed away. And it took me no less than 18 months to engage that community to take them to Konobi, where I handed over houses to them sometime during the year, this year. So and you understand it. Much as you can't promote, you have to work with them to understand that they have to leave a community they've been born and raised under, that done everything as residents of Lamontville. And here comes a deployee who says, well, I think your life ends now. You are now going to join a community in Ward 5. And these are the amenities that I have for you. So it takes a bit for us to hand over. But I want to also say, beyond the formalization, while they are there, we provide temporary services. Jointly ourselves, metros, municipalities, we will provide potable water, we will provide electricity connection. In some instances, as I indicate, it may not be feasible because of the safety. We have got areas in Gauteng where we're engaging, in Kutong, for example. There's dolomitic areas there where our engagement is, you can't build here, you've got to move. But the movement and the policy alignment delays what Comrade Sputler was talking about. Now, the availability, Julian, of land, I think our statement does articulate it properly. But I wanted to just demonstrate that if you do the calculations that have been given closely, the availability of land both between private and government gives us over 35,000 hectares. Now, currently, almost 24, close to 25,000 of those hectares are under development. 5 are under implementation already. We have approved development planning at the municipal level for about 41,000 of those. Why the development planning for about 40? Meaning we've already surpassed the municipal approval process. We're now saying, where can we put a house? Should it be social housing only? Should it be? So we're at that facilitation and approval. We're at pre-planning, which means we've already identified at about 33 of those projects, giving us a total of about 20,301 hectares. And I promise you, all those sites are 30 kilometers moving towards town or CBDs or convenience of those areas. Yes, we have challenges. I mean, you will recall the court order we received in the city of Cape Town, where prioritization between ourselves as national, province, and the local were not aligned. We wanted to do social housing, and the city sold the land. It went to the highest bidder, and the court said we were making a logical case that social housing is needed. One of the land parcels that has been acquired by the department through HDA is at the Sea Point. The discussion we're having is, how do we make it also affordable to a young person who is a born Capetonian to be able to have a place and a site that is in the city center from what is available. A second parcel we have is Century City, which we are planning. And some of you who may be familiar with the length and breadth of Cape Town will know that this is just not an ordinary place, but it's upmarket. The same Lamontville community I'm talking about, we have moved them from Lamontville to Konobia, in the middle of almost Umhlanga, but you remember the guns that rang and kept that project in abeyance. From somebody, correctly, maybe in their interpretation, who were saying, not in our backyard, you bring us RDPs. And I said, we are going to bring something that is valuable. You can go and see, we've started moving them in. It takes a bit and a while for us to be able to do that. Sigis, I think sometime we may want to talk about coalition. And at least when we are brave to talk about coalition, there's one thing I'm requesting that we all do. Be truthful. Before 2016, there were reserves in the city of Johannesburg. I don't want to talk about anything. He left reserves in the city of Tshwane. I'm not going far. He left reserves in the city of Tshwane. When I was president of SALGA, I watched those reserves being depleted I don't know, I don't want to say by who. But it's very easy to point at the African National, and that's the only one you point at. And I'm not saying we're the best or good, but I'm saying we need to be equal in a discussion. You say there was little development in the city of Johannesburg under the African National Congress. Can you go and read how was Waterfall formed? How was Waterfall formed in the city of Johannesburg? It's a new under the African National Congress. Today you go to Waterfall, you say, they delivered nothing. We only know about Lillian Street, which is not completed. When did it commence? Who did not do it right? Do we ask that question? Is it only wrong when it's the African National Congress? Do we only talk about it, or it's only us who needs to go for correction? Let me leave it there. I just want to talk lastly about the extended service that we then provide, which accompanies a PNG. It will relate to what Ntabi, I think, raised in relation to Comrade Sputla's question and the availability of services. You will know that our PNG, our RTP house, as we commonly know it, cost around 183. When I said there are projects which were running jointly, for example, Lufureng here in Johannesburg, it's supposed to, at its completion, will have no less than 30,000 parcels given to people, individuals, whether at a first home or whether as a PNG, because it's mixed developmental use or social housing. It's a mega project. I think it should be one of the biggest in the country. Yes, it got stalled, but it's moving very well. But what have we done in areas where we realize that we may not be able to be connecting to his grid at the pace that we would want? We've put off the grid a substation which was approved by them so that we can continue to build. That does add a little bit, about 90,000 to around 102,000, but it is better to do it and accommodate your beneficiary rather than saying, I'm waiting for a load reduction to come to an end. In Jablane on Thursday, the 700 total that we're talking about, all of them are off the grid, because we are partnering with the electricity and energy provision. We've taken that extension further of saying we will not only wait for the water provision and the reticulation to come from the municipality or the bulk from DWS ourselves as human settlement. You might have seen some of our houses have got the tankers outside. They benefit from water irrigation. They are able to collect water and store. That is not at their cost. It's in rural areas. It's at our cost. In some instances, we even provide butlers for those, just to make sure that we deal with the issue. So our price cut now for a PNG moves at about 183, which would have been the normal price if you are building in a place that have got resources or services connected. But you can take it to around 280 in a rural area in Kanduli where there's no water. Where you don't punish them and not turn their house into a house because you are waiting for water connection or electricity. But we improvise with the 500 watts solar. That we also do even in townships. I'm sure you will see some houses as we hand them over, they will be having solar to bring some relief in terms of the price and the cost. Comrade Nongcebo, I think that's what I wanted to add. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much to our NEC members for the very elaborate and detailed responses. And I'm sure no one wants to have a second bite.
Yeah. They're all covered.
Except for Shannon. Okay, Shannon.
Thank you. I forgot one question on housing. Sorry, Shannon Merritt, KCBC Africa. I forgot one question on housing. You know, during apartheid, Colours was put in one area, Zulus was put in hostels, and so on. We can go in each tribal authority what happened during apartheid and so on. So now we have a challenge with backyard dwellers, where Colours don't want to move from Colours areas, Zulus don't want to move from hostel areas and so on. So is there a program where the Minister of Housing can tell us what can be done to deal with this issue of apartheid mindset, but also to accommodate the backyard dwellers, because some people, the children don't have money, so to buy a kuku, put it in the backyard is the cheapest thing to do. Thank you.
All right. You know, Shannon, a lot of the reasons, a lot of people are asking why we are having our manifesto launch in Riverside. And the reason for that is actually to highlight what the ANC-led government has been able to deliver insofar as mixed housing development is concerned. If you actually drive to the area, Riverside, it's a completely new development with a mixture of houses that are subsidized from government, human settlements, flats. It's actually absolutely beautiful as you drive it, and you can actually see that it's an entire new development that has taken place there as a result of the interventions of the ANC-led government insofar as human settlements is concerned and housing is concerned. Comrade Temi made an example of Waterfall. Beyond Waterfall, you've got Riverside that did not exist a few years ago, that actually now is a fully fledged community. And that's also why we're going there, to actually show that you do have new developments, you do have new communities that are actually as a result of the intervention. So when we speak about 4 million houses or over 4 million houses, they don't exist in abstract. There's actually places that 10, 15 years ago were just literally a forest or, an open field that currently now have fully fledged communities, beautiful roads, tarred roads, electricity, and all of that. So you'll see all of that when you go to Riverside on Sunday. Hopefully, we'll see all of you there. But Comrade Tembi, I don't know if you want to come back or should we just have you answer that question with Shannon on the side. But thank you very much for everyone who's joined us here today. And because we took you away from your Sunday lunch, we have provided some refreshments. I'm sure Shannon will be very happy with that development. Thank you very much, everyone. Our media briefing is adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you. I need someone to wipe the sorrow.
Some case I just sorrow.
You got a draw. How?
They wanted Tulani. No, they wanted to do a picture. I don't know who. A picture. Okay.
Where?
In front. Okay. Oh, and then you need to do a